if one of your buddies goes up to you and says, I just took a job at this new place, they pay me way more and I do way less, you'd be like, that's incredible.
That's sick.
You wouldn't be like, you need to go back to that initial job and earn your stripes as an accountant.
Foreplay, presented by Barstool Sports. It is the dog days of summer in the golf world, which is an exciting time for a lot of us. I think we got a couple different vacations coming up. Dan just came back from a little Euro trip. We got Olympic golf coming up. We got videos. We got Frankie versus Mat Barzal from the New York Islanders at Sabonic. I believe that's coming out Wednesday. Alex Bush, you're gonna be a big contributor to the show from the voice from the gods.
Video. That's a huge video for the future of videos, because if you can shoot at Sabonic, I feel like you could shoot fucking anywhere. It's like if some course now is like, oh, we can't do it. It's like, well, they cost $1.5 trillion to join, and you can film there.
It is nice. It's like very surprising being able to get out there. It's exclusive Long Island. It's very visually stunning. I saw Frankie and our crew were all posting some pictures from last week when they filmed that. So I believe that's coming out everywhere where you get our videos on Wednesday. So be ready for that guy. And then another key, little attribute of that video that'll be interesting to watch is if it helps that we just have a really hot guy in one of our videos, because Mat Barzal is an incredibly handsome young man. And so, maybe Bush, we promote that one a little bit differently. Maybe we try to tap into a different crowd, maybe a little bit more of a female audience, get those numbers up from like 1.5% to like 3.5% or something like that. I don't know. But have you seen Mat Barzal, Dan?
Yeah, I was there. That was one of my first. That was like my first week. We did the Islanders scramble.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. He's a handsome cat. He's got a certain aura, as the kids would say. And I think like 5 days after we did that video, he signed like a $80 million contract or something.
Yeah, he's got some star power. So that video's coming out. Frankie's game has been great. Everybody knows that. It's been improving and improving and improving on the channel for a couple of years now, and posting a lot of good scores when he does the break at 90 with Trent Daddy. So see his game up against Barzal, who I think is like a 2 handicap, little singles match coming out on Wednesday. So you're up for that. This episode is brought to you by Chevy. They are presenting sponsor of Foreplay. A couple of years now. We love Chevy with the bow tie. Get the crew together, head off to the course in the new 2024 Chevy Traverse. Look, talk about it on the show. I'm going on a huge golf trip this week. I can't wait. The Chevy Traverse, you got room for your bags, for people. I think you can get 8 people in this. It's got 3 rows of seating, all kinds of storage space, and all the technology now. So people, obviously, big vehicles, American. We understand that. Chevy American. But you don't always have the great technology. You don't necessarily think of like these big, spacious cargo vehicles that are going to have the high tech. Oh, no. The Chevy Traverse 2024, it's got buttons, Dan. You just hit a button, the seats automatically fold, unfold, technology's through the roof.
It was one of the things I noticed a lot in Europe was how small the cars are and how much I missed having a little bit of space. And a Chevy Traverse is just like, this is America. We are the land of opportunity. We are expansive. We've got a lot of space. And cars like Chevy Traverse are going to help you cover the grounds of this great country better than any other big SUV is going to. It's got a best-in-class 17.7-inch infotainment system. I know that.
Sure does. And I would like you to go to Chevy.com/Traverse right now. Build your own, learn more, check it out on the site. But like you're saying, too, big vehicle like the Traverse, you're going to win, too. If anything goes wrong, maybe there's an unruly driver on the other side of the road. You want to be protected in that big Chevy Traverse. You're going to win in that thing, and that's what we like. We like to win here. 328 max horsepower, 326 pound-foot of torque. Head over to Chevy.com/Traverse. Build your own and learn more. Episode is presented, as always, by Chevy. Chevrolet, together, let's drive. We got quite a bit of, for the week after the last major of the year. We had a little bit of drama. We had Jon Rahm broke through on LIV for the first time. He was emotional. Kind of a weird dynamic with the finish where he and his teammate on Legion 13, Tyrrell Hatton, one of the most entertaining men in golf, were kind of battling out down the stretch. Rahm missed a really short putt on their second to last hole, and then Hatton missed it was almost a Rory-esque kind of putt of the 72nd hole where it was short, but it looked like a really hard putt that snapped across the hole, and Jon Rahm gets the win. He was very emotional afterwards. He's an interesting figure this year. I feel like every time we have talked about him, he's almost been a tragic figure in that a year and a half ago, not even, he was in top of the golf world. He had won the Masters in 4 tournaments before the end of the Masters, I think, and then didn't really win the rest of the year, had a solid Ryder Cup, goes to LIV, did not have great performances, looked a little bit angry, which isn't unusual for him. And then now he kind of breaks through. So yeah, credit to Jon Rahm. We, at our core, we love Jon Rahm. And I've said, I think Jon Rahm is one of my favorite figures in the entire game, regardless of if he went to LIV or not, because I like how candid and real he is, all the way from his anger and being pissed off on the golf course a lot to the way that he answers in interviews. You might not like everything he says. You might not like all of his outbursts at times, but at least he's true to himself, which I've always kind of enjoyed about him.
Yeah, definitely a strange year because, and he did have a top 10 in the last major of the year, which kind of salvaged the major season. He missed the cut at the PGA, didn't remember, withdrew with the toe injury from the U.S. Open, did nothing in his Masters title defense. So he finished, I think, 7th. It was at the Open Championship, which was good, but he's second in the LIV standings. Which, one thing I am confused about: why wouldn't the LIV standings just include the majors, right? Like the PGA Tour one does. I feel like that would be like more of like a, okay, these 4 tournaments exist on separate planes from both of us. We both, and then it would be kind of like a, you're scratching our balls, you scratch ours, give us a couple spots in those major championships. So I just don't understand why they wouldn't include those. But he's second in the points there. He's finished outside the top 10, or I think just once or twice. So he's played solid in LIV events. But as we talked about a lot, this is the problem with going to LIV, is that you're really, for a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is the right way or the wrong way, just what the numbers say and the interest and sort of the general consensus is that, like, unless you perform in the majors, playing really good on LIV isn't enough to sort of keep you in that conversation with the Scotty Schefflers or the Xander Schauffele's. And as you mentioned, I think Rahm was really interesting that he said, they were asking him, I think it was at the Open, about his form this year and saying, oh, since you've gone to LIV, you haven't played well. And he was actually like, well, actually, it was pretty much since the Masters last year that I haven't played well.
Right.
So it's not, I don't know that if he was on the PGA Tour that he would, this would be that much of a different situation. He just hasn't been sort of himself. But yeah, I guess nice to see him break through. He's very, very emotional. I think part of that emotion is definitely the piece of he's a very smart guy. He's very aware of what's going on. And I think he knows sort of that it's been a difficult year for him discourse-wise. It hasn't gone the way he thought it was going to, the way anyone thought it was going to, with regards to this deal happening a lot sooner, with him being sort of the catalyst. And I think that was probably a bit of a monkey off his back. Like, okay, I finally won, and maybe this conversation will quiet just a bit.
I think so, for sure. I thought that came through with the emotion, and I think that for our crowd, that a lot over the last 2.5 years, we have spoken about LIV like it's clearly not to the degree that it was at the beginning, but it is a little bit of a push of yourself to a relevancy relative to what's going on in the rest of the golf conversation and discourse. And it's gotten bigger and bigger, and they've had bigger events. I think the international part of it has clearly stuck and been kind of their wheelhouse. When they go to Australia and they have the party hole and the massive lines for all their merchandise, like, that gives LIV a little bit of pop. But like you're saying, you just kind of check the ratings and check even like the social interactions in general. It's significantly lower than PGA Tour on a week-to-week basis, not all the time, but on a week-to-week basis, and especially the majors. And if you go over there and then you're not winning, it does become very obvious that like, oh yeah, I haven't really thought about that person. I haven't seen that person. I haven't watched that person play. I don't really know what's going on in their game. I don't know what their game is like. In this, I think Rahm himself felt that, and then felt this as a way to kind of get through that a little bit. And it was outside of him like yelling at drones and shit, like, you don't really see that much from Jon Rahm on a week-to-week basis. And now you see him emotional, and I think that emotion was a testament to, LIV in what's going on over there does still matter to those players, and it matters to him in that moment as much as anything. I'm not going to say as much as him winning a major or whatnot, but like, that was about as emotional as a guy can be after winning a golf tournament. I think there's clearly more to it. There's clearly, you take a lot of heat, and it's always really difficult to put yourself in somebody else's shoes in any instance in life. But even a guy like Jon Rahm, where it's like, he was on top of the game at one point last year. He's winning major championships. He's the guy. Then he takes all of this money, which is still like, you're still the guy. That's great. And so to somehow try to feel empathetic towards him and put yourself in his shoes is hard to do. But, you do think about it of like him and his teammates and then playing week in and week out on LIV together. Like they do care about that. They have created this bond and they're Legion 13 and they are their franchise. And as much as we might mock or laugh at that from afar, like in their world, that is unbelievably important. And for him to break through in that world and get the win, I thought that the emotion kind of symbolized that it really is important, even if it doesn't feel like it or hasn't felt like it from the beginning. It was pretty important to that guy who's a big figure of the game.
Yesterday was an incredible leaderboard, like an incredible leaderboard. I do think, and I was looking at the standings today, the LIV standings. I look at these standings quite often now. I keep on saying, look at the standings today. Like I'm looking at them pretty regularly at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of cool. Like I think there's a lot that's holding it back in the sense of there's different guys with different contracts, right? Like, so some of these guys, so basically they have the standings. I don't know if Alex Bush could do this visually, but if I can send you the link. The first 24 guys in the standings are in the lock zone, which means basically you're good for next year. You keep your card. If you're 25th through 48th, you're in what's called the open zone, which is, I'm going to read it right now, face potential trade or release by their team. So there's no guarantee, but you're also not guaranteed to be out. So if you're in the 25 to 48 zone, I guess that's when the discretion. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So, like, okay, so scroll up a little bit. So a guy like Sam Horsfield and a guy like Sebastian Munoz, like those guys probably aren't, like, they're probably not going to get dropped from the league either way. But go down a little bit more and go down from the open zone to the drop zone. Okay, so right here. So, like, this guy, Scott Vincent, like, really wants to get out of the drop zone because he will not get signed. And so if he, passes Pat Perez, then he at least gives him a chance to stay in the league. Whereas if he signs below there, because he's not like a commercial draw, he's probably not going to get like re-signed. The problem is a lot of these guys, like Bubba Watson, is probably not going to get like relegated from the league. So this drop zone thing, I don't know if it's actually like,
and he's a captain, right? He's like a captain.
He's a
team.
captain.
He's not going to get relegated,
right? And like Anthony Kim, who is in dead fucking last,
our boy Anthony
of the whole
Kim's
league,
in last, man. He's got no.
He's
points.
in last, dude. He's got no points. He doesn't have a single point. But like, I doubt that they're just gonna like kick him to the curb next year and make him play the Asian Tour. So I don't think it's as clear cut as it is. But if it was this clear cut, if it was this easy to follow, and there weren't these like, okay, this guy's got this deal and this guy's got that deal, and I think it actually might be kind of cool. Like, it is basically you're taking like all of the drama of the PGA Tour as far as keeping your card and just making it a lot simpler, right? Like that's the dream. But the PGA Tour is the same thing where it's like, oh, he's got past champion status, or he's in the 125 to 175 category. So it's really not that clear. But I do kind of like this idea of like, and I guess that's what the signature events are, of like 50 players and there's a hard cutoff. And if you're in there, you're in the league, and if you're not in the league. And I think there's something to it. I also think that the shotgun start thing just stinks. It stinks. Like that's what you're talking about with the Hatton and the Rahm stuff. It's just so there's no time. There's no real time for something to build, and maybe that's what they're looking for. But it just feels really jammed in. But there are definitely parts of it. And like yesterday, I'm gonna look at the leaderboard. It was like Jon Rahm was in first. Tyrrell Hatton has been awesome. He's in third place, I believe, for the whole season. And then it was second place was Joaquin. So it was Jon Rahm, Joaquin Neiman, Tyrrell Hatton, Cameron Smith was the top four. Paul Casey, Cameron Tringale, Matt Wolff, Taylor Gooch, Louis Oosthuizen, Bryson in 11th. It's like, it's a hard one. It's a hard one because the names that you see on those lists make it seem like it's going to, but it just doesn't, I don't know. In the current format, I think it's because the shotgun start, it just doesn't have that.
The shotgun start really does lose the incredibly natural crescendo that golf tournaments deliver. It just doesn't have it. And I get that, I find golf has been in a really interesting kind of like introspective spot over the last couple of years of we want the biggest stars to play together and against each other frequently. But I think that gets a little bit convoluted with like, and then they also need to all like finish and be a part of the finish at the same time. That's just not a realistic thing. And I think that the finish of a tournament, as we found out this year over and over again, can stand for itself. It doesn't necessarily need to be mega stars. It's the natural drama of the conclusion of a tournament, and watching group after group in the final, round, and Saturday and Sunday, the final 5 or 6 groups. As a fan, you start to familiarize yourself with those holes. You know how those holes are playing. You know what kind of shot a guy's going to have in on his second shot on 14, which hole's the birdie hole, which hole's the eagle hole, which hole's a really, really tough par hole that he kind of needs to hold on. And you get to then watch each of them kind of go through that gauntlet together. And maybe at one point somebody's got a putt on 18 while somebody's got a putt on 15. That, but for the most part, it kind of builds and builds and builds. And we saw that, man. Like, I was going to kind of go through this year in terms of, I thought this year was a really big year in the big tournaments for realizing that we're okay in a post Tiger Woods, post Phil Mickelson era where golf is fractured. It still delivered incredible events. The Players Championship finale was awesome. It didn't include Tiger or Phil or even Rory. It was like Scotty won, who's the guy that was winning everything anyways. And by all accounts, that would be boring. It wasn't boring. It was like Xander was right there. You had Wyndham Clark with the lip out on the last hole. You had those guys stepping up to 17T. And you can go to the PGA Championship. Like, we were all kind of shitting on the PGA Championship at the end of like because the way the course played, it was an unbelievably awesome finish. When you had Hovland making that run, and then Bryson, and then Xander coming up behind him, and what we're kind of talking about, like, Xander had the benefit of getting to go last, right? It's almost like when you win a coin flip in football playoff game, or in PKs and soccer. It's like, you want to go last so you know what you need to do. Like, he literally got to go last in golf because he earned it, and he got to make the final birdie knowing exactly what he needed to do. Bryson made that putt in the 72nd hole, and then and my whole point is just that, like, without it necessarily being, and I know those are some big names, but Xander isn't a needle mover like a Phil Mickelson or a Tiger Woods or a Rory McIlroy in terms of star power. Yet, like, the tournaments that he was involved in where he won, we talked a lot about it at the British Open, where it's like, it almost didn't even matter who was up there on the leaderboard at the British Open. The tournament was so awesome to watch and so fun to watch on a pure entertainment value, shot by shot, that, like, anybody being up there at the end was awesome. And I thought that was a really good sign for kind of the future of the game in a time where we talk about how shitty it's been, that it's fractured, and that people are just playing for money, whereas we all play for the love of it. We want to see Rahm and Bryson play against Scotty and Rory and Xander more often, and blah, blah, blah. Yet we didn't necessarily get that. We didn't really get those guys in the final all the time. It was awesome that we got Bryson versus Rory at Pinehurst. That was one of the most iconic majors that I can ever remember. But, like, we got all of that stuff this year without relying on the things that you kind of felt like we needed to rely on for the last couple decades. And I thought that was really cool. And I think that a lot of that was just the natural drama that a golf tournament and the typical format of a 72-hole golf tournament delivers. And I think that that all comes back to this point that we are kind of hitting on at the beginning of this little rant, was that, like, the shotgun start just doesn't deliver that. I get that on Friday and Saturday, it delivers that you can turn on the TV for 4 hours, and at any given 4-hour stretch, you're going to see all of the players, and that's kind of what they want. And sure, maybe it makes sense on a Thursday or Friday of a typical PGA Tour event, where something like that, instead of having to watch from like 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. in order to see all the players, like, you get to do it in a 4-hour window. I kind of understand that concept, but in terms of delivering the drama at the end of a tournament, it just doesn't do it. It really doesn't do it. And it doesn't even do it in the way that, like, I wanted to talk about it. Like, I couldn't be like, he missed this putt on the 17th hole because this guy's finishing on a different hole. So it's not even necessarily the 17th hole. It's like his second to last hole. And then when you're trying to compare people's finishes in real time, it's tricky, because if a guy's on the, I get that they try to put him pretty close, but, like, if a guy has, 13 through 16 to play and another guy has 16 through 18 to play, you're like, those aren't the same hole. So even though they're at the same score, it's like, this guy, those 3-hole stretch might be really easy compared to that 3-hole stretch might be really hard. And you're trying to balance all that as a viewer, and you're like, I'm an idiot viewer, dude. I can't do all that in real time. Just, you know what I mean? Like, make it easy for me. It's like, they play 1 through 18. That's what they do. And they finish in that order. And I'm used to that. And so I agree with you. I don't think the shotgun start for the drama of the end of a tournament delivers as well as just the traditional format.
Right. And there's a tried and true format. Like there's been different stars who have come up through this sort of existing ecosystem and become stars and tournaments that you remember forever.
Travis Scott, folks, is coming to MetLife Stadium. I'm looking on Game Time right now. Travis Scott, by the way, I think he surpassed somebody huge in ticket sales.
It was Taylor.
Was it Taylor Swift in Europe or something? Is that what I saw?
It was Taylor Swift. I saw that too.
Well, if you want to go to the show, it's coming up a couple months, which is crazy to say this is coming up, but it is. October 9th. $57. You can go to a Travis Scott show in East Rutherford, New Jersey at the iconic MetLife Stadium. You can also, we got Yankees tickets. I'm looking Blue Jays, Angels at Yankees. The Angels at the Yankees at Yankee Stadium on August 6th. $5. You can get tickets. Blue Jays at Yankees on August 2nd. $17. The whole point is Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app partner of Barstool Sports. You just fire up the app and scroll through. It's very, very fun to do. And you get out of the house. A lot of times you're always looking for something to do. You're looking for should we go to dinner? Should we cook dinner? Do we need a new show to watch? Get off your arse, as Dan would have been saying this last week, and go to a show.
Yeah, it's you never regret it. You never go to a show and you say, you know what? I really wish I just stood on my couch and ordered food for the 12th night in a row. It's nice. It's nice weather everywhere in the country right now. So get out there, especially the summer nights. Those are the ones that you remember.
Summer night. Flash deals for sudden discounts, zone deals when you're feeling flexible, and their lowest price guarantee. That means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you can find the same seats for less anywhere else. They're the best place for last-minute seats with up to 60% off your favorite events. So what are you waiting for? Get to an event. It could be a Diamondbacks game if you're in Arizona. I'm looking all week this week. We got Nationals coming, Phillies coming, $12, $14, $18. Great time going to the game, the ballpark. Have yourself a dog. It's a nice time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code Fore for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
The other problem that they face is all of the players that I mentioned cut their teeth on the PGA Tour, right? Like LIV has not developed its own star. They've signed a couple kids out of college at Chikara, Puig, and Caleb Surratt. And, obviously those guys are still young. They could develop. But all the guys I mentioned from yesterday, Rahm, Neiman, Hatton, Smith, Casey, Wolf, them because of Gooch. Gooch might be the only guy, and that's sort of a different category because he's just been said so many things. But all of those guys cut their teeth on the PGA Tour, and so this is the third season of LIV is almost over, which I feel like is, obviously it takes a long time to build a league, but 3 seasons, 3 full, 2.5, I guess, but 3 years, it's a lot of data to go off of, right? Like they've had some of the guys I think have played it'd probably be 30 tournaments now or something on LIV.
Yeah, and I would say in that same stretch, Ludwig Oberg and Sahith Theegala have emerged as names that people wouldn't have known that are sort of
Tom Kim,
surface level golf fans,
and those guys
sports
haven't
fans
done it. Ludwig has had success in the majors, but those guys have done it mostly on just the back of PGA Tour events.
Yeah, right.
And so if we have another year. And we will, I think, unless this deal gets done. It's July 29th. I feel stupid even talking about this deal. But if it doesn't happen, whatever, and they poach some more guys at the end of this year, say they get a Victor Hovland or something. I don't know. That's not based on the inside information. Just a top 10 level player, the guys they've been going after.
Show. It's a speculation.
It's a speculation.
That wasn't even speculation.
It's almost like the Saudi. It's almost like the Saudi league or the MLS in soccer, where it's you get to a certain point in the actual tough competition, and then you just decide, okay, I'm moving on to this next stage of my career, and I'm now cashing in on this celebrity and this star power that I have cultivated somewhere else, as opposed to becoming a big. You're going to make more money or the same amount of money, but you're not going to sort of rise in the collective consciousness. And I think that's just kind of a challenge to what we expect and what we want from athletes. Like, that's why I think people, for the same reason, are so disappointed sometimes when a guy in his prime, goes and takes a Saudi deal, because it's like, yeah, you understand on a personal level, like, this guy's played in Europe, he's cut his teeth, he has an opportunity to make a gazillion dollars and set up his family. But that's not what we expect from our athletes. And it's probably not fair because they're humans, but we expect them to want to care about legacy and care about building that sort of almost intangible piece forever. But at a certain point, someone comes up to you with a bag of cash and says, you can keep doing that, or you can come over here. And like, Tyrrell Hatton has made like $20 million already this year, in addition to what he's already made for the guarantees. And so it's just it sort of it challenges what we expect and what we want as sports fans.
Yeah, it does, and I think that's why Rahm is such an interesting case, is because I think that he stands out to most fans as a guy who really is about legacy and who really is about his spot in the golf consciousness. He's very aware of the history of what it means when he goes and plays in Spain, when he wins a major championship. He knows he's the X number of Spanish person player in history to have won that major, that tournament. And so I think that it's been very interesting to watch his experience since he went to LIV through sort of the prism of understanding he is closer to what we kind of expect and desire out of our athletes. I really think that he is, and I think that most people believe that. And so, for him to be there in that spot mentally, and for us to know that he's in that spot, is so fascinating to watch, because you put it in such contrast to, I don't think he has the same mindset as a Dustin Johnson. Like, clearly they're different ages, they're different spots, but like, I think we all kind of understand that DJ went there, he took a ton of money, he's won a few events there and had some fist pumps and some emotions, but overall, it's pretty clear that like Dustin Johnson is not that worried at this point about his legacy or about his standing in the majors comparatively to where he's been in his career. And I think that we all think Jon Rahm still is. And so them, the two of them basically making the same decision, yet being in such a different mindset when it comes to how that's playing out and where their game's at and where their career's at and where their legacy's at, is very, very fascinating to watch. And it's cool to see, Bryson DeChambeau was on kind of that other end. I think Tyrrell Hatton is kind of on that Rahm end, where I think those guys, still really, really aggressively care. It wasn't just taking a bag and then sailing off into the sunset. They thought they had this like incredibly awesome opportunity to do both, and they still might. It's becoming more and more likely that they might. But that's very different than what a lot of the conversation was originally, when there was no juice around it, when there was only speculation that none of these guys were going to be able to compete in major championships. They're only playing 8 tournaments a year. They clearly don't have the fire still burning inside of them. That's why they went over there. It was a lot of the older guys. It was the Sergios and the Lee Westwoods, and they're going to go. They're going to take this bag. They're going to laugh all the way to the bank, and it's sort of they're going to the Anaheim Angels. It's kind of like their version of that. That's like what happened with Albert Pujols for us in St. Louis, where he was like the guy goes to the Angel, plays there forever, makes an outrageous amount of money, ends up coming back and having a hilariously great finish. But like, that was kind of the version of that in a lot of people's minds. And I do think it's big for LIV, and I think it's cool and energetic for the overall landscape of golf, not just the PGA Tour, to see this, the Brysons and now Jon Rahm get this win and gets a top 10 in the British Open. Like, I think that it's nice. It's very nice to see that like there's a pretty strong contingent over there. Still, Brooks Koepka obviously won a major championship last year, yet he still has a pretty similar resume to what he had on the PGA Tour. Like he shows up in majors, and then regular events he's never really showed up, whether it was PGA Tour or LIV, not to the same degree that he has in major championships. So I just think it's very interesting to see some people in a really different spot in terms of mindset that have gone to LIV than sort of what was the general consensus out of the bat over there.
Yeah, but we only really out of the gate, off the bat, not off the gate, but one of the two. But that sort of thinking only really applies to the very, very top level, because like a guy like Anirban Lahiri, so he made, I'm looking at right now, he played 166 events on the PGA Tour. He made $9 million. He's played 27 events on LIV Golf, and he's made $22 million. And so for him, it's like, if you're not in that category, I don't see, it's such a no-brainer. Like, it's such a no-brainer.
It really is.
It's like if someone came up to you and just be like, in 1/7 of the events, you're going to triple your career earnings, unless you are Jon Rahm. Unless you're a guy who fancies yourself multiple like major, you're not going to leave a mark on the game no matter what. I mean, unfortunately, largely speaking, you're not gonna be a Hall of Famer who people are talking about in 30 years. Go and get your money. It's and we've been talking about this for 3 years. It's nothing new, but it's on the individual level. It makes so much sense.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense on whether that's beneficial for the game at large. And just because I think it's a good decision for Anirban Lahiri to go there doesn't mean that I have to enjoy watching it. And that's what's gotten lost on the online of this debate is if you say that LIV doesn't really matter, it means that like you're shitting on the players. So you can understand the situation that on it, what's good for the individual is not always good for the collective, and what's good for the athlete is not always good for the person watching. You
right.
could argue that like it's sort of similar in a way to like the NIL era in like college basketball, where it's like these guys all transfer after every year. There's like a gazillion transfers. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to do that, but I can also, in the same vein, turn around and say I liked the other way better. I liked it when everyone was together.
And I think that has been right. Those two things get kind of crisscrossed and mixed up as the same argument. And I think, right, because everyone just wants to put everything in its own lane and then attack you for just like being in that lane. Whereas I think what you just said at the end there is very, very much how most people think, where it's like, okay, I get that as an individual, you should make that call. It's crazy not to make that call for a lot of reasons. We have decided as a society, unless you live in like a cult that's anti-capitalist, we have decided in this society that money is the scoring system. That's just what it is. It's like if you're better at, if the market determines that you're better at contributing to it than other people, you end up with more money, and money just gets you the ability to acquire whatever you need or want to acquire. That is just the system. You didn't have to create it. We didn't create it. We're not saying it's a perfect system. That's just what we abide by. You're never going to defeat it. And so at that point, all you can really do if you're an individual is try to accrue as many of those points, much money as you pretty much can. And if you're going to say that not doing that would truly be idiotic in a ton of ways. And like you just said, that doesn't mean, Dan, that like that means I like it because it's better for Anirban Lahiri. I played in a pro-am with Anirban Lahiri at the Wyndham Championship a couple years ago. Great guy. We had a really nice time, super nice. Then he jumps over to LIV, and like you said, since he went to LIV, he's made infinitely more money than he was making on the PGA Tour. So that is a no-brainer decision for that man. But I still would have preferred, like I think you, if Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau were part of that finish at the Players Championship this year, or if Cam Smith was able to like defend his title at the Players Championship, last year. It's like instead of having the fraction and the back and forth and as much drama as that's given us at times for the show, in terms of pure golf viewing, it might be better for Anirban Lahiri's bank account. But I think we all kind of agree that like it could still be better getting everybody together. That's why the majors have been so awesome as a whole. Having Bryson right there going up against Rory at the U.S. Open was so awesome, and I'm hoping that we get more of that. But it's money. They're making a ton more money. I think that Lahiri is an incredible example of just like a guy that nobody thinks about, talks about, hears about. No offense to him, really nice guy. Played in the Pro-Am together. Yet it was such a no-brainer decision. He's making a hilarious amount of money just being over there. And like, look at Tyrrell Hatton. Like that guy, don't get me wrong, he was a top 10 player in the world rankings, top 15 in the world rankings. Like playing incredibly well over here, but now he's gone over there. And I mean, he's making astronomical amounts of money, and he's only going to for more and more years. And playing against, even if you don't want to concede that it's less competition, it's less people. He's not playing against 150 people every week. He's playing against like 40. If you go through that whole list that you just said, there's 4 or 5 guys at the bottom of the list that have accrued 0 or almost 0 points. So he's really playing against like 40 people on a week-to-week basis, 45 people, and all that money at the top. So, good for them at this point, and good for Jon Rahm breaking through. And I like to see the motion. I think it's come a long way. It really has.
Yeah, I mean, that leader, sometimes like you forget it because it's so piecemeal. It's like one guy goes over, one guy goes over, one guy goes over, and then you see like a leaderboard like yesterday, and you're like, holy shit, like that's really, really impressive. Saw Matt Wolff up there, finished 5th.
Love that.
Nice to see Matty Wolff's name. Missed that guy. He's still only 25 years old, which is crazy.
That's
But if
wild.
we remember, it was him and Victor and Colin, and there was those debates. Oh, who was the best? Who was going to win the most? Victor and Colin have done incredible things on the PGA Tour. Matt Wolff obviously went through some personal stuff. He was very open and honest about it. I thought it was interesting. Like a guy like that, he hasn't even tried to qualify really for the majors the last 2 years, and that kind of gets to like what we were talking about again, where we want guys like that, young guy, but there's no law that says that you have to. And you've made this example. There's no law that says that you, the accountant, has to do every fucking thing that you ever could possibly do to be the best accountant that you could be, right? Like if one of your buddies goes up to you and says, I just took a job at this new place, they pay me way more and I do way less, you'd be like, that's fucking incredible. You wouldn't be like, you need to go back to that initial job and earn your stripes as an accountant, because you haven't. So we do hold athletes to a very, very different standard than we hold people to, because they are these people that we put on a pedestal.
Are you hitting the links this weekend? Well, guess what? I am. I talk about it on the show, but the best players in the world are as well, and they're doing it at Le Golf National at the Olympics, and DraftKings is going to help you get a little bit of skin in the game from the first tee on Thursday through the final putt on Sunday. DraftKings Sportsbook has got you covered. They got same game parlays, live betting, odds boost, so much more. And I've always been a gambling man. I like to gamble. It's fun, it's riveting, it's enthralling. Use a lot of different apps over the years. I'm obsessed with the DraftKings app and just how easy the interface is to use. You can find all kinds of fun stuff. You can keep it simple if you'd like, but the app really is amazing.
Best in the business. Most options, works the fastest, looks the nicest. There's no glitches at all. It's there's a reason that DraftKings has been like the leader in the space for a really long time. It's because the product is superior.
It's very easy for first timers too to get started. So you just try. You can bet something very simple. Just pick a golfer to win. I'm looking right now. Scotty Scheffler is plus 360 to win. That means he's essentially 3.5 to 1. You bet $100, you can win $360 if Scotty Scheffler wins. Rory McIlroy's plus 850. Xander's plus 550. Tommy Fleetwood plus 2,000. Shane Lowry plus 2,200. So again, those guys are 22 to 1. Victor Hovland's 25 to 1. So if you want to keep it simple, you can do that. And if you're new to DraftKings, you're trying to keep it simple, you got to check this out, which is that new customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code FORE, F-O-R-E. That's code FORE for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
It was an interesting week because the PGA Tour event this week was dead. And this is what's his name was, what Martin Slumbers, the R&A chief, was talking about, being like, I don't know, because they the R&A, which is the oldest golf organ, the British version of the USGA, they set up the rules.
All-time name, just royal and ancient. That's just
royal and ancient.
Any better than that name.
They're the OGs.
Two great words to put together. We're royal and we're ancient, and that's our whole name.
So they this is the same thing as the USGA, where the Open Championship is their baby. It really funds a lot of the initiatives that they do around the world. Their purse this year was 17.1 million, I believe. It was less than the 14 live events, less than the 8 signature events, or right around there. And what he said basically was, this is unsustainable. And it's like politicians talking about the debt at all times. Like, this is eventually going to come back and bite us. This is eventually going to come back and bite us. The amount of money that is flowing around golf right now is just out of control. The fact that LIV is handing out all of this money without it coming in, it's amazing that nothing has really changed in the last 3 years. Like, they haven't come together. They've all boosted their every PGA Tour event now. It's like 1.5 million for the winner, even the ones that aren't signature events. And yeah, like Strategic Sports Group has come in, they've made this investment, but like, I don't see maybe 2025 is the year when things really begin to take off. But the ratings for the Open Championship were down. The ratings for the PGA Tour events are like pretty much. And if you zoomed all the way out and you said to a business person, someone's going to come and there's going to be two tours, not just one tour that's paying way more money. Both tours are paying way, way, way more money, and the viewership has not really changed. That's not an equation that makes sense.
How does that crumble? Is that like whenever the TV rights are up for renewal, they're just not going to be able, right? Because it's got to be a pretty simple formula for these. These are major corporations that are running this. They don't, they've been around in power, influential for a very long time, so they're not going to make catastrophically dumb decisions to this level. They're clearly paying attention. They're watching everything that's gone on. Where does the first, if this is a house of cards, which it feels like, where does that first card start to fall? Is it TV rights? Is it because everyone I know has the same exact theory of like, not only is golf not big enough, I don't think, and doesn't capture people enough in terms of the viewership in the professional game to sustain one league having $20-25 million purses, having two of them, plus having 4 majors a year that now have to compete with those purses, plus how big the Ryder and President's Cup are. Like, how does it start to crumble? Because it has to.
Well, it crumbles when MBS gets bored or Yasser is deposed. If there's some sort of split there on one side, because that's the only real like funding that they have right now. I mean, I know that they're doing what they can to build up these teams, and I'm not doubting that they're making progress. It's still it's not even close to a corporation that can afford to hand out $25 million 14 times a year. Like, that's right. Plus all the guarantees on the PGA Tour side. Yeah, I don't know. I would guess it has to do with media rights deals. I would guess it has to do with when sponsors like start to pull out. But then as there's always this piece in golf of like, it's not always going to make sense financially, right? Like these golf courses that these really powerful rich men, like, they're nonprofit organizations. Like, people are willing to spend money and to give money in golf to be in the mix, and it's not always going to make sense. It doesn't make sense financially to spend $1.5 million to join Sabonic, but if that money doesn't really mean anything to you and you feel like you can get in and you can rub shoulders with, all these different guys. And so that's sort of the unquantifiable piece is how much of Travelers sponsoring a tournament is them thinking that, okay, this is really going to get us $25 million or whatever it is in return on our insurance company that doesn't even really operate with consumers. And how much of it is the CEO loves golf and they want to be, he wants to get into the Wingfoot member
It's
guest.
a picture with Scotty Scheffler after he wins. That's what he gets.
That's something that golf has that I think some other sports have, and that's why, does it make sense?
Formula One has that, doesn't it? Like,
Formula One has that. Football has that too. It's like, but I guess but the difference with team sports is you can sell the asset. So it doesn't make, you're not going to, you make money if you buy a football team for $2 billion or $3 billion, you're not going to get that money back initially, but you're going to get it back when you sell the team or you have this asset that continues to appreciate. But people are always going to be willing to spend kind of the fantasy sports tax. There's not many options to have your name associated with the best in the world at this sport that historically has been where business happens.
I will defend, I guess, golf a little bit, and I've been on both sides of it. I'm kind of representing Frankie on this show, where it's like I'm kind of probably debating with myself a little bit, but because I went on a little rant about how I thought that when I really looked back, at the beginning of the year, I think there was we didn't have much to talk about. There wasn't much golf being played yet, and I think almost all that we talked about is how does Jay Monahan still have a job? This guy's chirping this guy in this league. Phil's going after the tour. The tour's going after Phil. It's fractured. We're never going to get to see these guys. They can't get any world ranking points, so a bunch of them are going to be in the majors to play against each other. The ones that are, we're only going to get to see the Brysons and the Jon Rahms and the Brooks Koepkas and the DJs 4 times a year where they get to play against the other guys. That sucks. And I think that my takeaway, after watching the 5 biggest tournaments of the year thus far, was that we're in a pretty entertaining place. I really thought that. I thought that all of those tournaments delivered. they didn't have, like I said, they only had Rory and like one of them. And then they didn't have really Tiger or Phil factoring in any of them at all. They were still incredibly riveting, and I think that can stand for a long time. And so to defend golf a little bit on the business side of it, I will say that like that's a little bit of, it's at least in line with the insanely increased marketability and value that we've seen of all sports, especially in the US. Like if you go look at
sports in general are just like the business of sports is on fire.
If you look, and I know it's a long time ago, 1973 is, 50 years ago, but this isn't in line with like inflation. Steinbrenner bought the Yankees for $10.3 million in 1973. And what are the Yankees worth now? New York Yankees worth $7.1 billion.
I was going to say north of $5 billion.
$7.1 billion. And you've seen a lot of these sales of teams in the 3 or 4 major sports in the US over the last 10 years are in the billions. They're these astronomical numbers. We're seeing the contracts that are coming down. We're seeing like Jordan Love's contract in the NFL. Like they are hilarious numbers. And so I do think that we can all look, and we know how big football is. Football is king. I've said this example multiple times, but like the World Series has had to adjust its schedule in, October, November every year for the NFL, whereas it used to be the NFL had to adjust their games and schedule for World Series games. And like the NFL is just king. So I think we can all see the justification of these gigantic contracts and everything that goes on with that. But at least there's a pattern across all the business of sports, especially in the US, but all over the place. You're seeing, Ronaldo and Mbappe and these guys' contracts that they're getting are laughable. So to defend golf a little bit, like there is just, there are these folks that have an incredible amount of money that really do want to rub shoulders, but they also, I think, see, and this is what a lot of our critique of the, Saudis and MBS getting involved originally, they do see how intrinsic in all of our cultures, especially Western culture, sports are. And that is also a way not just to take your picture with Scotty Scheffler or Brooks Koepka, but like it's also a way to buy a very important part of the thread of American culture here when it comes to the PGA Tour and LIV. And obviously they're doing more international, but when they buy, Newcastle United, I think is the team, that they've got in the Premier League, like you're able to acquire an incredibly important part of that entire society's culture. And I think that's incredibly valuable too. So I guess like I was asking my own question a little bit earlier of like, how is this going to just crumble? And I don't know that it'll necessarily crumble because, like you said, if MBS pulls out, clearly that side doesn't really have a viable pathway to like profitability right now. But I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't think he would have come this far in the deal and all that. But I think that you really do understand. I think you're right that like there's so many added values that they get outside of just pure dollars and cents and profitability.
And if you listen to both sides, if you take them both at face value, which it's really, really hard to do these days, given, one side is LIV Golf, where it feels like everything is, it's incredible what we're building. It's unprecedented, and the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan still in his post. Unbelievable staying power that guy has.
Absolutely incredible.
If you take both of them at face value, which again is very hard to do, they both say they're in a great place, right? It doesn't seem like,
I think the Biden campaign was saying that a week and a half ago as well.
Right. So I guess it doesn't seem like, and maybe this is just pure propaganda, but like, you're right. It doesn't seem like either of them are like scrambling for their lives,
Right.
PGA Tour just got a massive investment. The LIV Golf is like touting all their, they're going to make other runs at big name players coming in. So I do feel my own emotion toward it changing of just like, all right, this is just sort of what it is, and it's not my job. We don't work for the PGA Tour, thankfully, so it's not our job to sort of have one beat the other. But as a consumer, you can sort of take like a half a step back and just be like, you let them figure it out, but it doesn't really impact you. And like you said, the tournaments have been good. It's not like the players is just like dead. There's no good golfers left, and it's just there's no buzz. There's no people there. It looks and feels the same. Max Homa said this too. You read everything online and it's like so bad. And then I went to tournaments, and tournaments are pretty awesome. I feel like as competitive as it's ever been. The fans seem to really enjoy it, and I feel like everyone had this sort of personal feeling about LIV and about what was going on in the PGA Tour, where you felt personally invested, and then a couple years later, it's kind of like, why am I personally invested in this?
Yeah, and I think that when we really do look at who is always going to be behind the investment into golf, who is always going to be behind the agreed sponsorship of golf, from purses to the whole deal, title sponsorship, it is pretty much at this point like the white men that control those entities, and all of those guys are golfers and they're members at their club, whether it's the Connecticut guys or Arizona guys out where I live, or LA guys, or whoever it is. For the most part, like, those are the circles that those guys that control those funds, those organizations, those companies run in. And to them, golf is always going to be a good investment because that's what they do. They're around golf. They believe in golf. The people that they all like to hang out with and rub shoulders with and go to dinner parties with and dinner dates with are golfers. They do 9 and dine leagues where they belong to really nice clubs. And then all those people at their, dinner tables, they do talk about what's going on in the world of golf, and they watch golf. Did you see this shot? Did you see how Johnny Vegas ended up in a police officer's pocket at the, to them, that is probably because golf's such a big part of their life. And we're in that too. Golf's everything in my life. It's all my group texts are all golf, 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 that they probably, and they're the ones that are going to control this investment forever. They don't really see it as a negative, like you're saying. It's like, no, everybody's doing well. Max Homa's happy. Scotty Scheffler's happy. Everybody's making money. There's still fans out there. The crowds are roaring. The clips are doing well on social. Like, Jon Rahm's crying after he won on the other tour. This is great. Like, everything is great. And it's like, that might just keep going forever at this point.
From our perspective, like, our social metrics are up. Like, everything's like, it's almost like if you just choose to be happy, it's like, just sort of
exactly
relax, let it go.
This episode is brought to you by BodyArmor Zero Sugar. The brand new Zero Sugar sports drink from our friends at BodyArmor provides real hydration with no, and this is important, no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or dyes. Had a nice day on Saturday out at Greyhawk Golf Club. Dan's got it right there. Product's delicious. That's really, really good flavors. It looks good, and it is good. Little Greyhawk Golf Club. Alistair, by the way, started 5 under through 4 holes. He missed the cut in Chicago and then came and played the Saturday game with us at Greyhawk. Started 5 under through 4 holes. And we had a couple adult beverages. I think libations, as Mr. Woods has called it. He's put a couple libations and some trophies after he's won. So we
Is
had
that one of
libations.
his words? Libations?
Yeah, libations. Yeah, it's kind of different. I think
couple pops.
Yeah, I think he always goes with like libations is the big one that he goes with. But we had a few libations on Saturday. I woke up Sunday morning, getting ready for a flight to St. Louis. Thank God I had that BodyArmor Zero Sugar. It just gets that rehydration in you right there. They got great flavors: fruit punch, lemon lime, orange. And again, Zero Sugar sports drink. Yes, we love that, but also none of the artificial crap, the flavors, the dyes, the artificial sweeteners, none of that's in there. We love BodyArmor, Dan.
Yeah, it's great. The lemon lime is really something that I've been hounding this summer. Just a bunch of lemon lime BodyArmors. I've got them all over my house. The waters are great too, with Alex Morgan on the cover. Just we're a BodyArmor household. We got this all over the place. You open a fridge at the Rapport household, and there's BodyArmor lemon lime Zero Sugar right there.
Get yours today at Walmart or a local grocery store near you. That is BodyArmor Zero Sugar and all BodyArmor products. Get yours today at Walmart or a local grocery store near you.
Did you I felt really bad for Charlie Woods last week.
Yeah. Yep. That was
a tough scene. I mean, he's choosing, like, he wants to do it, so I don't know that I should feel bad for him, but it just felt like all those people watching him when he was like, go watch someone else. You're the problem. You're the fucking problem. The problem is not him wanting to play golf and getting into the US Junior. And you're not the problem even for, watching the first round. When he's shot 82 in the first round, go out there and watch someone else. Is it really that cool to see Tiger Woods' kid shoot 80? Like, is that really doing it for you?
It really was sort of the worst version I think I've seen yet to date of the, like, we need to leave Tiger Woods
because it was in person. Because it was in person.
It was like, I agree. Like when they're at the PNC and they're playing on TV and people are tweeting about it, and people think you go too far or whatever. I've never really agreed with that. Where I'm like, dude, they're on TV at this event. The kid's young. He's enjoying it. He was like 12, then he was 13, then he was 14. He's out there with Tiger. Tiger can kind of protect him if he wants. They're doing interviews together, which is voluntary. But like also it's, we're saying he's choosing to be there. It's like, okay, well, he was 12 at the time. Like, what do you mean he's choosing? You're not choosing anything. You're 12 years old. Whereas now he's getting a little bit older. He's in high school. And I thought because it's in person, because the people are right there and how much attention it was getting and how poorly, he's playing, it's like, that was like, all right, this kid, this is like when people say it's not fair to grow up with the pressures of being so-and-so's son and having the expectations and being Tiger Woods' son, playing the game of golf. That seemed like that's just sucks. And as someone who has no actual pressure, but feels a ton of pressure when we're on camera and people root for our games and like that times a trillion for that kid. Oh, I'm with you. I felt horrible. I felt like I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to look at any of the clips. I saw like one tee shot where he hit a par three where he hit it, started like way out to the right. And he just put his head in his hands like Rory, a la the back nine of the Masters 2011. And I was like, nope, I'm out. I don't want to watch any of this. And thinking that Tiger Woods is there and he must have been feeling obviously incredibly sad for Charlie or bummed, but also maybe angry. Maybe, like he's a dad who wants his kid to do really well. So it's like there's all kinds of stuff going on there. It was a tough scene. It was tough.
The kid who won, Trevor Gajewski, his dad, Scott Gajewski, has been a pro golfer for a really long time, kind of oscillated between. This kid's got some spunk. So he entered the week ranked 3,570th in WAGR, the World Amateur Rankings. Mm-hmm. And he tweeted after the USGA tweeted like, rankings ain't nothing but a number. Trevor Gajewski, number 3,570, will play for the U.S. Junior Amateur tomorrow. He retweets that and says 3,570 is a big number, eh? And then after he wins the tournament, golf.com posts a graphic saying Trevor Gajewski wins U.S. Junior Amateur, was 3,570 ranked amateur in the world before the tournament, and he retweets it and he goes, "Golf ball doesn't care," with a shrug emoji. So I like this kid. Also, I will say, very, very strange, and I'm still not over this. Like this kid, 3,570th in the rankings. He's got Titleist on his hat. He's got a big Johnny O logo, and he's got some D.A. Davidson thing on. It's like, I remember the days when Stuart Hagestad used to show up in like a Deepdale hat, and it was like no logos, and that was the amateur look. These guys are all logoed out, even if you're outside the top 3,000.
Dude, when Tiger, I know when he won the amateur at Sawgrass, that outrageous, like straw sun hat that he was wearing was a just TPC Sawgrass hat that like clearly somebody had either given him or like his dad had bought in the pro shop. And then I want to say too, when it was maybe Pumpkin Ridge when he was there, like, or maybe it was at Newport or one of those. There's a great clip of him too, where he's just rocking a U.S. amateur hat. It just says in big letters on the top. It's like it's a white hat, I think, with it's almost like one now that's been retroed and brought back in, but it's said in like huge letters, like U.S. amateur with like an American flag woven through it. Is what he's wearing as he's winning the U.S. Amateur. And you're right, that was like the only logo on it. So now we sound a little bit like old man yelling at cloud about like these kids are just making money when they maybe.
Same thing as the lip thing. I'm all for it. I just I can also reserve the right to comment on it.
I know, Dan, you just came back from your Euro trip. Had you been to these places before? Where all did you go?
Yeah, so we went to Scottish Highlands right after the Open. We drove up from the Glasgow area where Royal Troon is up to the very northwest of Scotland. It was like a 6-hour drive. We were staying in a town called Torridon. It's really close to the Isle of Skye, which is a little bit more of like a famous destination. You ever seen the show Outlander? Or Bush, you ever seen the show Outlander?
I have not, no.
Excellent show about you'd like it. It's about the Jacobites and the trying to put the old Catholic kings back on the throne in England after the Protestant Reformation. Yeah. And this woman travels in time. It's really, really cool. But it all takes place in the Scottish Highlands, and we're big fans of that show, so we've been wanting to go there for a really long time. So drove up there, and then it was great. It was really, really cool. And then went to Copenhagen, where I did a semester abroad in college. So that was awesome. My golf bag just arrived this morning. Took them 2 weeks to get it here. Emma still doesn't have her suitcase. After flying yesterday. We flew from Copenhagen to Helsinki in Finland, and then Finland to Los Angeles, which broke my brain. We flew over Greenland.
Oh, you're way up there. Yep. Yeah, because you go more.
You go north. So you don't. So I was thinking, oh, why are we fucking flying from mainland
like
Europe
to
further
Russia
east?
At some points, I think.
Yes, you're like you're further east to then go west, because I'm thinking we're going to cross all of the United States. I'm looking at the flight map, and it's like the first time we crossed the U.S. was like over Montana.
Yeah, you don't go over to LA. You go like up. Like if you're looking at the globe, you go like up.
Yeah,
you
So we did that yesterday. After that, it was like a 20-hour trip. We go to the British Airways thing to try to get Emma's bag, and they tell us that they have no concept of where it is.
Nothing.
They're gonna. We go. What do we do now? They go. Let's just wait a few days and see what happens. It's like, well, that is just not an acceptable answer in the slightest bit. Like you cannot just say, well, we'll just wait a few days for like my shit, like, and just see if it happens. They're like, well, we have no. And I feel bad because it's not the woman at the counter's fault. But you are the face of British Airways, and fuck British Airways. Yeah, I had an incredible time. It was good. It was a good time for it after the majors. The 3M, I knew it would be kind of like a little bit of a weaker field, and so it was a good time to take off. Back in California now, ready for these events coming up. The playoffs are coming up. We got this Creator Classic thing, which was just announced today, that is going to be interesting at East Lake. So they've got.
I saw that. I haven't really seen any details on it. I saw that there's some early commits to that. I wonder if the foreplay crew might end up in that thing. We'll have to see.
So they it's really cool. It's sort of like the Q at Myrtle Beach, only if it was live and on a PGA Tour golf course. So they're going to be playing the back nine of East Lake in tournament conditions Wednesday afternoon. There's also going to be a live audience because it's just Wednesday afternoon at the Tour Championship. So if you're there to watch a practice round, you can just hang out. I think it's at 4 p.m. Eastern, and they're going to be. It's basically like putting, the Q was cool and stuff. But this is going to be a different level because you're placing them into the PGA Tour ecosystem, which means I believe it's going to be trackable on the PGA Tour app. It's going to be on ShotLink. They're going to have all the tools about ball speed and live tracers. They're basically just turning on a PGA Tour broadcast a day before. So that'll be really interesting. I'm excited to see how that. It seems like the PGA Tour is finally being like, we got to get a piece of this YouTube golf thing. This thing is really big, and we have the infrastructure. They have, if there was ever going to be like a YouTube golf tour, and Good has done some events on Peacock and stuff, but the PGA Tour just they have incredible golf courses in primo condition, and they have the like scoring and the distribution apparatus where they can just put in different golfers into this thing that already exists.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because we have, people wonder all the time what's going on, what's next, and we talked to a couple different groups about something like this, and we've wondered if it would make the most sense to partner with or work with the tour. And years ago, before even like YouTube golf and all that really took off, and we were discussing right at the scramble. It was during COVID. It was like 2020. We did the first scramble against Kisner, did incredibly well, and at that time we very frequently started floating the idea of on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning of a PGA Tour event, an hour or two before the first groups go off because the field's cut in half, so they don't tee off till later. Send somebody out there, a regular person. We like, they're a stretcher. We were like, you got to just send Trent out there. Trent at the time, I think he was doing the Breaking 100 series, or he was about to, and it's like, send a regular golfer out there, put it on TV, and everything's already set up. Like you just said, you just got to turn the whole thing on. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to pay $1 million to bring in a TV truck and set up cameras and all that. It's already set up. So just turn it on. So it makes a lot of sense that they would do that. I'm curious. I'm curious to see how many people watch, how many people are there. I bet the environment will be pretty awesome. The live stuff, like when we did I remember we did our Max Homa scramble match like 2 years ago, and it was like a Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock or something like that. And we got a damn good crowd to come out to Auction Southern Dunes. And then the next time I was a part of anything live that wasn't like PGA Tour golf in terms of live audience, we did Desert Classic with the Good crew, which Dan, you finished second place, I believe. And just a phenomenal audience out there. And then I think it was at French Lick where they did it again. So clearly there's an appetite for people turning out and showing up and watching this stuff. So very cool move by the tour to kind of embrace that, and for it to be, East Lake is, their biggest. That's the biggest thing they got left. It's the Tour Championship. So yeah, very cool for the tour. Good for them. Smart move.
I also just saw that they're going to have an alternate broadcast with the Bryan brothers with Grant Horvat on for 12 through 2 p.m. Eastern on Thursday and Friday of the FedEx St. Jude in Memphis. So this is the play. This playoffs is really, it's the influencer FedEx Cup. Basically, it's just called the Influencer Cup.
And they got to do something. I mean, they got to try to get as much juice into those things as they can. So I understand it. I think it's smart for them to branch out. And we like all those guys. I've done a bunch of stuff with all those guys. So yeah, good for them. It's kind of been a long time coming. The old Creator Classic, and the Q was probably the first time. Which, another great performance by our guy Dan at the old Q in Myrtle Beach. First time they really kind of leaned into it. So yeah, pay attention for that. Summer is all about the freedom to have fun. You don't have to necessarily blow your budget, go on some crazy trip to make the most of it, because you can forget a vacation and you can take yourself a nice tequila-cation with the new Truly Tequila Soda. It's a Barstool Classic day. As we're recording this, the Barstool Classic is off and running in Pittsburgh. I'm seeing the Truly Tequila Sodas. They're being enjoyed out there. They're refreshing. It's hot everywhere, all over this great country right now. It's just warm. That's what it is. You want to be refreshed out there. You want to enjoy yourself. And the new Truly Tequila Sodas are going to do that. You can try all 4 refreshing flavors: lime, pineapple, guava, grapefruit, and watermelon. All have 5% ABV and just 100 calories. Take a tequila-cation, Dan. We love a nice tequila-cation.
Yeah, the tequila stuff is it's really been a game changer for Truly. I'm a tequila guy. California, we got a lot of influence from our neighbors to the south. So tequila is kind of where I like to stay. It's a comfort drink for me, and those things are the perfect companion for the golf course.
Try a tequila soda. Just try it. Trust me, they got the 4 great flavors, like I said. It's delicious. It's good. They got sparkling water, real fruit juice from concentrate, and premium tequila blanco. It's the drink of the summer. Try tequila, Truly Tequila Soda. Just give it a shot. Try it. Trust me. Keep it simple. Hard Seltzer Beverage Company, Boston, Massachusetts. Please drink responsibly. Kevin Kisner finished tied for 33rd this last week.
Hey, best finish of the year?
Paycheck. It's got to be. I mean, I don't know. I didn't hawk the entire thing, but there's for a guy who's missing quite a few cuts. I saw at one point he's looking like he could have made a run and gotten up there in the top 20 or so. But he finished tied for 33rd, so a little bit of life from our guy Kiz. Sawheth, another T6. Just a stud. I think he's on the verge, man. He's so likable. He's going to be such a star at the game. So another top 10 for him. And then yeah, obviously Johnny Vegas gets the win. Ended a 7-year drought. A little family affair there on 18. 2 putted for birdie to get it done. I think he had to make a 3 or 4 footer on the 72nd hole, which we've seen quite a few short putts ever since the Rory thing. You've seen some short putts missed that you're not used to seeing. So a little bit nerve wracking, but he gets the win. Always a likable guy. So congratulations to him. A couple travel notes that I wrote down from yesterday. I flew to St. Louis, hanging out with my family for a couple days. Guy next to me had the window seat. I had the aisle seat. One of the craziest moves I've ever seen. He had the window up for the entire flight, except when we took off and when we landed, he put it down.
That's what he's a smart guy. That's when 90% of aviation accidents occur. Maybe that's what makes him really anxious. And then when you're up there, he wants to enjoy the view. That was unavailable to humans for thousands of years.
We got to see God's green earth and the sun before we perish. If we're going to go, that's the last thing we should see. It shouldn't just be the darkness of this death tube is the only thing that we see. I want to look out, get a glance at a ray of sun one last time or something. And I want to have some sense of what's going on. This happened to Frankie. I think he mentioned it a couple months ago. We were flying somewhere. And it's one thing if you're just a window down because you're like asleep before we even take off kind of guy the whole time. For this guy to have it down as we take off, and then we get to cruising altitude, he puts it up. So now I can't sleep. It's bright as shit. The sun's literally right there. There's no atmosphere basically to protect it. And then he puts it down again. We got like to 1,000 feet and he just puts it down. I was like, dude, now we got no idea what's going on here. We got nothing. I got no sense of the ground. I don't know when to expect to land. So crazy move by him. And then I got to shout out the St. Louis Lambert International Airport has the worst oversized baggage procedure of anything I've ever witnessed in my life. And we've been to every airport, but this one, no matter how smoothly everything else goes, you're screwed because what they do at the St. Louis airport is they have a separate, oversized baggage little conveyor belt where it's not one that's circular, it comes up and just stops. And so what they do is you can't access that, the bags don't come out automatically. They only come out when a gate attendant or an attendant from the airline's baggage office comes over and hits a button. But that button doesn't start flashing until after all the other bags have come up. Then they go over, they have to make another stop, and then they put the oversized bags up. So you have to wait for every single person's normal bag to come out. Then you have to wait and make sure that the baggage office attendant doesn't have other people, right? Like if other people lost bags, then they're going through the whole process with that attendant. And so then you're there and you're like, hey, can you just like literally hit this button? It's flashing. And they're like, I have to help this other person first, and then I'll come over there. So there's like 6 of us that just have oversized bags. My first bag might have come out 25 minutes before we were able to get our oversized bags for no reason. This was normal operation. It wasn't busy. It wasn't in any way. That's just the normal procedure. And that was it going as smoothly as I've ever seen. So of all the airports I've been to, I've never seen like that system is set up to never be, it can't be successful. The most successful it could be is you would get your oversized bag 5 to 10 minutes after the last person got their last bag of the normal bag.
Yeah, they're setting their goals low, which is fine. They want you to understand that you're going to enjoy the St. Louis airport while you're there. Yeah, that's a psycho move with the windows. Well, another psycho. Yesterday we were flying and there was an Italian guy behind Emma, and this is an 11-hour flight, and she reclined her seat, and he taps her and goes, "Do you mind?" And it's like, well, this is an 11-hour flight, and the person in front of her was reclining her seat. So he was asking her to just really sacrifice one for this Italian guy who wanted a little bit more space,
because her space.
Why don't you? Why would they have the function? Why would they have the recline functionality if you were just supposed to not do it? I never understood that. It's a thing that pops up in Barstool circles every couple months. People say if you recline your seat, you're an asshole. What are you talking about? What the plane is designed, the seats are designed for that functionality. If it's an 11-hour flight, well, what are we talking? I've never understood that argument.
I'm not a big recliner on planes, but I agree with you. If someone does it in front of me, I'm not like that person's a jerk off. And then I will say that did she communicate to the Italian man behind that the person in front had reclined?
Yeah, and then to be fair, he handled it well. He was kind of like, yeah, okay. I guess he was just shooting his shot. He just wanted a little bit more. He just wanted a little bit more space. If she was going to play ball, if not, that's okay. She has every right to say no. So I guess no harm, no foul.
I've noticed, Dan, I'm getting so old now that I can't really risk taking a window seat on flights that are longer than like 2 hours anymore
because of the old prostate shrinkage.
You just gotta pee. I mean, you just gotta piss a lot, and that's like on flights. I'm drinking water, you're drinking a lot, and it's like you can't risk it. You're sitting in there and you're looking over, like wondering if somebody's gonna get up first, so that you can then not feel so bad about getting up. And that's just no good way to live. Where it's easier for me to sleep in the window, but the aisle, you just run the show on the aisle. You get to kind of do whatever you want. So I'm unfortunately succumbed to just being an aisle guy, unless obviously if there's no aisles available, I'll go window, and then I get there early and try to pee like 3 times before we take off at the bathroom. That's a nightmare. I'm going to Bandon this week. So I do my annual trip with my buddies from St. Louis. I'm home for a couple of days seeing the family. And then we're flying out to Bandon. The weather looks insane. The group text, it's very fun to witness and experience, the group text from a bunch of people that clearly aren't in our world, our industry, don't get to do and have the relationship to like these golf places that we've gotten and been lucky enough to have, and to see like what they consume. Like they've been going through the only 2 people on this there's 12 of us. The only 2 people on the trip that have been there, myself and my brother. My brother got an ace on the 10th hole at Pacific Dunes, the only time that he was ever there. But all the other ones haven't been there. And to see like they're watching YouTube videos, they're sending me tweets, they're sending a lot of stuff like I've never seen it before, which I enjoy, even though I've been there a few times, and just getting all the hype going. But we're going to be abandoned for like 4 days. We're playing every course once. We're playing the new Shorties course, which is the 19-hole par 3 that they added. So now they've got 2 par 3 courses. And I mentioned it off the top, but it's going to be like 65 and partly cloudy the entire time. Probably going to be a little bit windy. But yeah, this is my probably biggest golf trip of the year that I'm lucky enough to do. I've got
Biggest
all the swag.
12.
Biggest stuff, yeah. Probably 10 trips or whatever the hell it is. This is the one. This one I take a lot of pride in.
I'll remember this one when we got another one coming up in 2 months, and that's the one you've been really looking forward to, counting down.
This is the one where I am the planner, so I've got all the swag. We worked with Peter Millar, of course, so we got a couple polos. I used AI to tweak our logo, which is an incredible feature. It took me like 15 seconds, and bang, got an unbelievable logo. We used Imperial to customize the hats. I'm going to post all this stuff online. We got custom hoodies from Unreal, those like performance hoodies I figured out in Bandon. We're probably going to need those. We had our merch team, Pilar, whipped up some like incredible comfort t-shirts that we've got. And then we got our guys at CMC Design who are our licensee for a lot of our accessories. So all the head covers and cool little like bags that you see Barstool Golf that's at, different golf courses, PGA Tour Superstores, all that kind of stuff. They whipped up these custom ball markers that we whipped with our logo too. So we are juiced up. We're ready to go. Golf trip time. Hopefully don't get rained on. So people will probably be seeing a lot of Bandon posts from me over the next 4 or 5 days. So get ready for that. You've done Bandon, right, Dan?
Yeah, I did it once with my father and another father's son a bunch of years ago, but I haven't played sheep range, haven't played the short ones. Also, the Olympics golf tournament is this week, which I'm actually pretty excited for. This is the first Olympic golf games where like everyone who qualified is playing. Like in 2016, there was the Zika thing. Also, the guys didn't really know what it meant to be like an Olympic gold medalist. So a lot of guys didn't play. They all dropped out. And then Tokyo was a nightmare with the COVID stuff. And that whole Olympics was just like really, I remember a lot of guys pulled out because they were just like, it's too much to go there and be in this bubble. I believe everyone who was qualified is playing. So Rory will be there. Jon Rahm will be there. Scotty will be there. Xander Schauffele will be there. Tommy Fleetwood will be there. Victor Hovland will be there. So I think it's going to be the best Olympics yet. It's on a golf course that we all know, Lake Golf National. A little bit of PTSD from the Ryder Cup there. Yeah, you were.
Yep.
Le Water. I remember that video. I watched that thing like a million times. I don't know why. That was like one of the videos that I just remember. Yeah, Le Water. So I'm excited. It's gonna be good. We'll see if Americans, what's probably gonna happen, and we've talked about this, is like because the Americans are so good on their own fucking ball, they're gonna go back to this golf course where they got absolutely pile driven in the Ryder Cup, and it's gonna be like American, 1, 2, 3.
The old clean sweep.
It'll be like Scotty, Xander, and like Wyndham Clark will win the bronze to say fuck you to everybody.
We're a big Olympics family growing up. My mom's very into the gymnastics, always been very into the swimming. And, we like to ski and such in the winter. So Winter Olympics do it for us too in the hockey. But largely it's been like Summer Olympics and being really into the gymnastics, especially growing up and like, you always kind of want to watch what your parents are watching. So in like the 90s and stuff, like in the early 2000s, like a lot of the Olympic stuff has been absolutely riveting. And then in the Winter Olympics, the figure skating, that stuff's off the charts. We've always been a big Olympics family. I've been thinking a lot about the Olympics this past weekend, whatever. And I think that my theory is that it's hard for me to get that into the Olympic events where the Olympics aren't the biggest thing in that event. And like
when you're watching the badminton, you're like, this is their time to shine.
This is it. This is bigger than the Super Bowl. They get it once every 4 years. This is it. Like their whole life, they probably, for the most part, just based on math, like won't get to another Olympics ever. Or maybe they'll be able to get to 2 in their whole life. And then you've gone through an 8-year stretch and like you're just too old now, or you missed out 1 year or whatever. So that's it. That's why I like the gymnastics, the swimming, all that stuff. It's as big as it humanly gets. I'm watching like the ping pong. Ping pong's off the charts. It's like all this stuff is about as big as it gets in that sport. And for the stuff like the soccer and we do the golf, so I'm very excited to see the golf because that's our sport. But even that, if I was, I just think that a sport where it's not the biggest thing, I don't get as up for. I think it's so riveting when you watch something where it's the biggest imaginable thing in that sport. When there's been so much buildup and so much trials, like it's hard to even get on the Olympic team, let alone get to the Olympics and then try to medal. And that's like years of processes. And like they've had, it's almost like when a team is trying to make a playoff run, and for like their last 10 games of the season, it's like they're in playoff mode. They're in elimination mode. They have to win. Like these people in a lot of these different sports have been going to many events for the last year where it's like this is the biggest thing that they've got, and if they don't do well, then their Olympic dream is over. And they made it through that, and then they made it through the next stage. It's like Q school, and then here they are now. They've made it to like the peak, and they're up against every other country, and it's so sick. So I'm very into a lot of the sports that are, again, kind of the off the beaten path sports that we don't see. I like the pageantry of it. I imagine Frankie does too. He's a very theatrical guy when it comes to all that stuff. So I'm into the Olympics. I'm hoping that we get a really good finish with the golf and whatnot. But yeah, we come from an Olympics friendly family. We're very into it.
Yeah, they could have some fun with the format. I think it would be kind of fun if it was like a team event. In some capacity, or they could combine the men and women in some way. Another 72-hole stroke play tournament just feels like a little bit of a dud, just because it's just going to be like another golf tournament. But I mean, last time it was pretty. There were no fans there, but the finish, it was Rory Sabatini almost won it for Slovakia, which he had no business even playing for in the first place. He shot like 62 the final
Slovakia
day.
Thing, like his wife or something like that.
I think like his wife had some sort of like citizenship or something, and so he just reclassified so he could represent Slovakia, and then almost won the gold medal for them. So it'll just be fun to watch. Like all the guys, Rory won't be wearing Nike, and he'll just be wearing like an Team Ireland outfit, and it's been fun. It has been fun watching the guys interact with the other athletes. That's one of the cool things, and I feel like social media has really, really kind of brought fans into that. It's always been something that people have talked about who have gone to the Olympics. Like, it's so incredible getting to hang out and meet out all these athletes, and so it is cool seeing like Wyndham Clark and Colin Morikawa taking a selfie with Stephen Curry, and like just the mutual respect there. And I think social media has like allowed a lot more people. Like Emma's following a lot of these people who are doing random sports, and they're making all these TikToks about what it's like in the village and stuff. So there is a kind of a more human element now to the Olympics, I feel like, than there were 5 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I like seeing all the social posts. I got to I know you mentioned that like Rory won't be wearing his Nike and stuff, and I got to laugh. My boy Mike, who's 12-year-old Pete's dad, who's 12-year-old Pete's like 18 now and hits the ball like 330 yards and is sick. But he works for this company Highland, and they sponsored Xander for years. And they were on like Xander's right sleeve. And they were like, Xander didn't win anything during the time that we sponsored him, except he was sick in the Ryder Cup, the President's
and the
Cup,
Olympics.
and then he won the Olympic gold medal, where you're just not allowed to wear other stuff. So shout out to Highland. They're good people over there. And I would always laugh whenever he brings that up. He's like, yeah, you just can't make that shit up, that the best time he ever performed was when he's not allowed to wear our logo on his right sleeve. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch, playing for their country, all the gear. So yeah, I saw all the Spanish guys just arrived. I was looking at my Instagram. Jon Rahm's all smiles out there with Puig and his crew after he's won last week. So they're all fired up, excited for that. We got quite a few from the galleries to get to. From the galleries, brought to you by TaylorMade Golf. I got this cool hat, by the way, from TaylorMade. What do you think of this color? I've been kind of rocking this hat a little bit.
I got no idea what color it is. Not a single clue. I
asked the wrong guy, didn't I? I wasn't trying to take a shot at you there.
Is it red, green, or brown?
It's like
red.
An olive green. I was debating too, Bush.
You like that one?
To say there.
You like that one, Bush? You feel good about that joke?
I loved it.
Cool TaylorMade hat and the TaylorMade golf balls. So, quick question: what if the golf ball that you are playing is not the number one golf ball for you? That's an important question to ponder. What if it's not the number one ball for you? We would like you to meet the all-new TP5 and TP5X from TaylorMade. If you prefer the softest 5-layer tour ball, that is the TP5. Or if you prefer the fastest, that is now half a club longer, by the way, in the TP5X. You'll be playing a ball that performs just like it was built to for you. Great customization. They've got white, yellow Pix balls. You can personalize it with my symbol. So go to TaylorMadeGolf.com today. Find the number one ball for you. That's TaylorMadeGolf.com. By the way, did you see the Pac-Man balls, which I will be featuring at Bandon? I know you were phoneless for a while there.
Yeah, I'm still phoneless. I did see the Pac-Man balls. They look fucking awesome, and the head covers look awesome as well.
So good. I've got the putter head cover, and I've got a case of the Pix Pac-Man balls that I'm going to Bandon with. So hopefully I don't need more than 12, because all I brought was 12. It's wide open out there. It's Links Golf. You shouldn't lose that many balls. But TaylorMadeGolf.com, they do a phenomenal job. Okay, we got a couple from the gallery questions. We're going to start with Enrico. This is a great one. He goes, let's say you and your friend get paired up with a random duo. So now you're a foursome. Later in the round, the two of them, the other duo, start chirping at another group and a scuffle ensues. Are we now bound by the golf gods to fight with our foursome, or do we sit back and let it be 2 versus 4? It's a tough spot.
How does someone think of that question?
Tough spot to be in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it sort of depends on the vibes in the group initially, and it also depends on your position on the golf course, right? If this scuffle is happening on the 8th hole and you're thinking there's a legitimate chance I'm going to have to spend 3 more hours with these guys, you probably want to back them up. If it's hole 17 and your car's over there, and you might want to you might just want to get out, without a scratch.
I think it really tests too your own moral compass. Like, what do you how willing are you to stick to what's right and wrong? Because in this argument why it's occurring and who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side. Like, if somebody in your group hit into the group in front and then they didn't apologize and they started getting hostile, then you're really being tested of like, are you just going to be blindly loyal to these guys that the starter put you with and go against what you know is right? Or are you in that moment going to stand for something and be like, I got to be honest, guys, I know we're riding together for the rest of this day, but I think you're in the wrong there. I really don't know. It's very dependent on, like you said, the dynamics in the spot and the round. I do think it also, though, kind of highlights the fact that as a group, you're much more inclined to agree with one another and be hostile towards other groups than you should be. Like, I think it's the same way with like a car versus a pedestrian. Like a car, whoever's in the car always thinks that the pedestrian or the cyclist is a complete moron. And whoever like the cyclist or pedestrians are always think that the driver's like a moron and the worst people of all time. I think it's the same thing in golf. I think like anytime you watch somebody, it's like, oh, look at these guys are a hazard out here. What a bunch of morons up there. Look at, and you just like, for whatever reason, you kind of, a lot of people, if a ball comes astray or somebody yells or somebody's playing me, you just like, for whatever reason, as a group, you kind of come together to be like, yeah, that group's like, they don't really get it like we get it. You know what I'm saying?
100%. It's human nature. It's clan mentality. Clan Mackenzie, Outlander, Jacobite Rebellion, 1733, Northwest Scotland.
Clan mentality. Now, you learned a lot about that when you were up there.
I learned a lot about the clans.
Okay, we got another one. Collie, Colly, Collie says, quick question, potential discussion point for the show. Why do they call it missing on the amateur side? Usually you don't read the break enough and miss low, but that would presumably leave a more uphill putt, which I'm assuming most pros would prefer. I guess if you miss amateur side, you're not giving the ball even a chance to go in, but the phrase amateur side / pro side presumes a miss anyways. So why would it be more pro to miss on a different side?
The reason is if you miss on the high side, the ball's always moving toward the hole, right?
Interesting.
But it is a good point though. Like if you have like a putt that breaks 5 feet right to left, you don't want to leave it 3 feet above the hole. But I think the reason is because you very rarely see pros hit putts where it crosses the line 10 feet before and then is just rolling further and further and further away as opposed to rolling closer and closer and closer. I think that's why.
I agree with that. And I think like, I don't know if he still does it, but you remember Patty Harrington was putting out like instructional videos all the time. You remember he went through like a phase
Patty's
doing
golf
that?
tips. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember he was doing lag putting and he was like, no matter what, I would give every amateur the same advice that I've ever played with is play way more break on lag putting than you think. And his whole reasoning was like you just said, he's like, if you miss low, especially from longer distance, it's most likely because like obviously you misread it a little bit, sure, but like it's going to be a mishit strike. And that mishit strike, as it gets below the hole, you just watch it wander farther and farther away. And even if your pace was solid, you're like, how the hell do I have 5.5 feet? Like that was a pretty good putt versus if you miss on the high side in that same thing, I think it trundles down within 2 or 3 feet almost all the time. But I have thought on like really long ones, like this guy's kind of saying of like, I want to play less break because I don't want to be if I'm playing 10 feet of break on some crazy long lag putt, like I don't want to be 5 feet above it. I want to be 6 feet below it,
Yeah. One of the core principles of Decade, which Scott Fawcett's, course management system is like, you should never be chasing below the hole.
Right.
Because there is a difference in the make percentage of a 5 foot putt uphill is higher than a 5-foot putt downhill, but it's not as much as you think, and it's not worth like it's kind of hard to I can think it's not worth taking the long out of the circle, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like if you think about a circle of where things are finishing, like there is a difference, but it's you're going to lose more strokes chasing the lower end of it than you are the entire circle.
Yeah, and I also think that he's shown that the 3-putting percentage from like 5 feet is not like wildly higher than above the hole than below the hole. He's like, you don't,
Yeah.
even though people think, right? So I think it's like a combination for us. It's like the miss is you miss around the same percentage of the time and you 3-putt around the same percentage of the time. So it's like you might as well just try to get it accurately as close as humanly
Try to get as
possible.
close as possible.
Not focus on like, okay, let's just make sure we're below the hole. It's like, no, actually make sure you're within 2.5 feet. That's what you need to do. And then you'll make more putts.
And that's true on the pro level. So it's especially true on the amateur level when you don't have nearly this, where your standard deviation is so much bigger.
I'm going to be lag putting my ass off at Bandon. Huh, can't wait. Rob says, according to Data Golf, Tiger is losing half a stroke in approach and putting over his last 25 rounds. What are your thoughts on him changing 2 of his most iconic pieces of equipment to something more forgiving like a Spider putter or P770 irons?
I don't think that it's an equipment issue. I just think maybe it is. Maybe he could use a little more forgiveness, but that's just sharpness, right? Like driver is the easiest club for these guys to hit. It's the biggest face. They're the most forgiving. They're better than ever. And his driving stats have been pretty damn good. It's just, and that's also what you see in guys who are older and are still playing a normal amount of events and playing full time is that's what kind of goes, the putting and kind of the scoring clubs, because Phil Mickelson can still rip driver with the best. It's not as straight as it used to be, but guys like Lee Westwood, they can still pound driver. It's just, even if he was healthy, those are the hardest clubs to contend with the young guys in. It's putting is a young man's game historically. It's you don't want the scar tissue to build. You have better fine motor skills the younger that you are, and it's been very difficult for guys to keep that up, even who are playing.
Brandel, that's one of Brandel's big points that he hammers home all the time. Your nerves fray, and so your feel's not as good. And so as you get older, it's just unavoidable that you're not going to putt as well. You're not going to have the same, feels on your scoring clubs and all that. And so maybe it would be better to have. I don't know about the irons. Like I think Tiger's just probably, he's one of the best iron players all the time. Brandel was going through another thing on Live from during the Open he was comparing Tiger. I think it was just from 2019. So pre-accident, of course, but not like 2000 Tiger, 2007 Tiger. It was like 2019 Tiger. He was comparing his right foot at impact with his irons to his right foot at impact with his irons now. And he was showing that essentially based on his limitations since the leg and the accident, that he was on like the inside right of his right foot was turned in with his outside side of his right foot was like lifted up in the air in 2019, meaning he was, like driving his leg towards his left knee and through the ball, which made him like the best iron player, in history. And at the time he was playing really well, won the Masters 2019, no big deal. Whereas now his foot is much more flat at impact and it's not really turning in and like cutting in. And that was Brandel's big theory of like he's just not able to drive through the way that he has historically done, and therefore he's like flaring them a little, and it's just not this like penetrating strike that he's able to control like he always could. So it might be something like that.
Yeah, and I noticed that at Troon, like on upslopes, it's really, really hard for him because on a downslope, you can get through the ball just kind of following the slope, right? Like
you do a little Gary Player step through.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. Where like on the upslope, you're naturally going to have more weight on your right side, and then to try to drive through, like he was hitting really loopy ones, like outright. Yeah, it's that leg picture. I know you guys talked about on the last thing, and I know it was funny. We literally talked about that famous picture of the leg, the one behind closed doors, but that being what it looks like now. That thing it's misshapen. It doesn't even have the like narrow ankle and then like a bulge for the calf. It's just like kind of a looks like almost like a tree trunk.
How does he even play on that thing? Honestly, like how does
It
he
looks
move on that
so
thing? Like,
the scar is like from his knee to his ankle.
mhm.
It's yeah. I'm not feeling super optimistic about him going forward. It's really upsetting.
He's gonna play great next year. All right. Barstool Classic today in Pittsburgh, Old Stonewall, awesome place. The owner there's a great friend. I've been to that one now 3 times, I think, and 2 times I played with Kevin Kisner there. One time we won it. The other time, I think we got home from the casino at like 5 a.m. and we had to be at the course by 7 a.m. So we didn't have the best performance of all time. One time I made, I think, 4 birdies on the front 9 with Kiz when we won. And then the next year when we played, he actually made because we're playing, it's Barstool Classic, it's best ball. And I was playing so bad that I think he said to me on 18, he goes, I'm going to refuse to play this hole so that you have to post a score for our team. I might have hit my drive 200 yards right out of play. And he's like, all right, I'll fucking play the hole.
Incredible.
So we've had good performances and bad performances there, but very cool spot, hard golf course. Sick views. I saw Tommy Smokes is out there. Frankie and Trent are obviously out there. That's why they're not on this show, and we're doing this show. But then the Classic will roll on in 2 weeks. I'm back on the trail. I'm going to be in Boston. Lived in Boston for 9 years, so I'm excited to get back up there. We're at TBC Boston for 2 days. We got a Monday, Tuesday event. I think it is, let's see, it's August 12th and 13th. I'm going to be spending the whole week in Boston. So Barstool Classic continues to roll on. Big shout out to Truly and all of our sponsors there. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much all I got thus far, Dan.
Good stuff.
Welcome back. Welcome back to America.
Thank you,
we'll
sir.
be back.
Nice to be home.
Yeah, I hope you get your golf clubs and all your stuff soon, or that you guys have retrieved everything. We'll be back on Thursday. I'm not sure if I'll be on the show or not yet. Hopefully I'm not, so then I'm just like lost in the Bandon sauce. But I do have my stuff with me, so I may try to do an early morning show on Wednesday or something. But either way, the crew will be back for a Thursday show, and then we'll all be back next week. So thanks for listening. Thanks to our partners. Hit it hard.
Hit it hard.